Hi, everyone. I'm Clinton Smith, editor-at-large at New England Home Magazine. Thank you so much for joining us today. I'm thrilled to be joined with the amazing designer, my friend Timothy Corrigan. Hi, Timothy. How are you?
Hi, it's great to be with you. It's so much fun. We were supposed to be doing this in person, but I like, it's just as good to be doing it on Zoom.
Well, if there's a silver lining, this is it.
Yes.
It's nice to see your face. So to everyone joining us today, we're just going to wait just a few seconds, maybe a minute, just for people to join us. The numbers are ticking up very quickly. So if you'll just give us a couple of seconds, we will be getting started soon.
So, Clint, where are you right now?
I'm in my New York apartment, and it looks like you're in your office.
I'm in my office. Yep. I've been very lucky. We've got an office that I've been able to come to since the very first day of the pandemic. I was the only one here for months and months and months. But now we're back and we've got a full office running again. So it's great.
Well, I recognize that backdrop from some of the Zooms I've seen.
Yes, exactly. Same one. So, yeah. But it's great because we've got windows that we can open and people have offices. So I feel everyone feels very comfortable and safe. And when we're all together, we're wearing masks. And but we even do our office meetings on Zoom, even though everyone's in their own little office. We don't want to get too close. So
it's the new way of the world, I think.
It is. It really is. Yeah. So.
All right. Well, our numbers are going up. So I think we're going to get started. So hi again, everyone. I'm Clinton Smith, editor-at-large for New England Home Magazine. Thrilled to have you joining us today. I'm sorry that we're not able to gather in person, of course. And as Timothy said, we were supposed to have this back in March in person, but we're very happy to be here, part of Boston Design Week in this virtual format. I think we're all very used to these at this point. And I know that Timothy has created an amazing and inspiring presentation for us today. So it should be a great presentation. So before I properly introduce him, I just want to mention that we'll be taking questions throughout the session, and I'll be back at the conclusion to do a Q&A with Timothy. A big thanks to those of you who've already submitted some questions. I've moderated a number of these, and I've never had so many questions submitted in advance. We'll get through as many as we can. I think we have close to 200 people joining us today, which is fantastic. So today, about our featured guest, Mr. Timothy Corrigan. So Timothy has been held in Architectural Digest as today's tastemaker.
I knew I was going to screw this up, and I just did. Hang on.
No worries.
Okay.
There you go.
No, it's not moving. Hang on. The slide is not moving. There we go.
There you go. Today's tastemaker billboard. We love that.
Yes.
And no better credence than from Architectural Digest. Timothy is also known for his ability to create a world of European elegance infused with California comfort and style and ease. He has been named to nearly every top designer list that we know, including the AD100, Elle Decor A-List, Robb Report's Top 40 Designers in the World, Star of Design, Design Icon Award, and the Institute of Classical Art and Architecture's Legacy Award. He's the only American designer honored with the French Heritage Society for his restoration of several national landmarks in France. That sounds daunting thinking about it. And we enjoy watching your progress. His work has been featured in all the world's best magazines, and with offices in Los Angeles and Paris, his firm manages projects around the globe for clients ranging from the Middle East, Middle Eastern royalty to corporate leaders, and of course, Hollywood celebrities. He has also designed several licensed collections with manufacturers that we admire and love. From fabrics to beautiful plumbing fixtures and rugs and trims. Last but not least, Timothy's first book, he's the author of two, but his first book chronicled the restoration and decoration of his landmark chateau in France. And today, he's going to be sharing insights from his new book, The New Elegance, Stylish, Comfortable Rooms for Today, which went into its first reprint after only 2 weeks on the market. That must be a record. So please, congratulations. So please join me, and I have my copy here. signed autographs. So thank you for that. So please join me in welcoming again Timothy Corrigan. And Timothy, I'll let you take it from here and I'll see you at the conclusion.
Okay, great. Clint, thank you so much. And it's so good to be with everyone today. This was, again, we were meant to do this in March and it was going to be a longer version. This is actually a shorter, abbreviated version because we're going to try to get it in very tightly. We're going to talk about the new elegance. And when we talk about the new elegance, let's start with what is the old elegance. Well, elegance was, if we look at it 100 years ago, you look at the wonderful Crowley family from Downton Abbey, and they sort of, to me, typify what I think of as old elegance. And if you went 50 years later, elegance kind of took on a sort of dirty word. It was sort of that aspect of people wearing, filling their homes with beautiful things, but then covering it up with plastic, seat covers so you wouldn't ruin it. That's really when the idea of elegance became very much look but don't touch. And I think that has changed very much. And we're going to talk today about how that concept of elegance has changed to the way we live today in the 21st century. And when I talk about the idea, the concept of elegance, it doesn't have to be any one form. So for example, hang on, let me see if I can do this right. There we go. You know, today what new elegance is, it's livable, it's approachable, it's comfortable, it's beautiful, and it's really about using your good things every day. And if anything that this whole pandemic has taught us, it's the importance of living in our homes fully. If we're not using our good things today, what are we saving them for? So every day should be a day that you live elegantly. And when I talk about elegance, it doesn't have to just be fancy schmancy formal. Elegant can be classic elegance. You know, it can be a contemporary elegance, or it can be casual elegance. You can live beautifully with whatever your style is. So just because I'm saying something is elegant doesn't mean, you know, that it doesn't apply to every single way that you design a home. So again, it's a term that to me personifies living beautifully. And so we're going to do a little brief tour of the world of the new elegance. We're going to only show, as I say, it's a much shorter version than I would have done normally. And so we're going to actually only go to 4 or 5 different stops on our world tour. But hopefully you'll get a sense of what examples and the diversity of what I talk about with the new elegance. And after each chapter, there's this sort of what are the elements of elegance, each chapter in the book. And it's sort of like, gee, in that last chapter, what I learned about elegance was some aspect, and you'll see that. And so I'm going to give you some of those examples of how you can create that sense of elegance in whatever home you're in, whether it's your own home or one you're doing for clients. So we're going to start our world tour with a trip to London. And you can see there I am on my flying carpet with Paddington the bear and a Burberry scarf. I try never to go to London without my Paddington bear. And this project we're going to show you was a really wonderful project we got to work on. This is a house called Belgravia House. It's one of the largest private homes private residences in the City of London. While it's called Belgravia House, it was actually built in the 18th century before there was even a Belgravia. And so this house is in the middle of Mayfair, it adjoins to Hyde Park. And it's a wonderful old structure that was originally built as a private house. Then in the 19th century, it was chopped up and turned into apartments. In the early 20th century, it was turned into offices because this is the most valuable real estate in London. And it became very sort of prohibitive to have it as individual apartments. And then our client who had the wherewithal to be able to buy it and turn it back into a private house did that. And so it's now 7 floors of private home. And what we got to do was the outside was listed as historic monument, but on the inside, we were able to totally redesign the whole space, all the spaces. And so that's really, we're going to talk about what I learned in that aspect of dividing spaces and creating spaces in a home. So this is one of the formal drawing rooms that looks out onto the street. And because it faced north, We decided to make it very bright and colorful. I used the work of the designer John Fowler to inspire me on this. Fowler was known for creating really incredible window treatments. And so we wanted to sort of evoke that sort of same feeling of what he did in the great country houses. And while this looks very much like a formal sort of drawing room that you might expect, it actually lives very much like a 21st century. There's a television behind that mirror. When you turn it on, the television appears. On the other side, across from the double sofa, is another television behind a mirror. All those chairs swivel. And so it becomes, this whole thing becomes very much a 21st century room. It's one of the bigger rooms. I want to show you one of the smaller rooms. This was on the ground floor. The gardens, this joins onto the gardens of Hyde Park. And I wanted to create this idea of a sitting room that was just off of as you enter into the house. And it was as if you were coming in from the outside, from Hyde Park. So we had this beautiful hand-painted wallpaper designed by Fromenthal, and it evokes the idea of a garden room that you've just come in from. But it's a small, intimate room. And then on this room was they wanted a kitchen family room. They wanted something that was, traditionally this would have had a very small worker's kitchen, for a chef and its staff. They live in the 21st century. They wanted a kitchen that you could live in. So it was, again, much bigger, and it was brighter, and it went on to the front of the house. So again, we created spaces, and that's very much what I learned in this project, was creating spaces that fit the way people live today. So while the outside was this listed landmark, inside was about getting the scale and proportion right for the interior of the house and the way people live. So that concept of scale and proportion is really what I learned on this project. And in the book, we talk about the idea of scale, the idea of relative size of one object to another, and proportion of how the different pieces fit together in a space. So I want to show some examples, and I do in the book as well. I show some examples of where we had rooms where we got proportions that were actually a little tricky. They were challenging, and how we worked with those proportions. It's one thing when you're starting from scratch and you've got a brand new, you've got a piece of paper and you're designing the house and you can determine what the scale is. But when when you're starting with a project the house is already built, you actually have to deal with sometimes some less than ideal proportions. So this was a kitchen that was very tall and very long and thin. So what we did was we put the black and white checked floor, which helps push out the eye, makes the room feel bigger. We did the over height breakfast table in the center of the room, so with those very high stools, and then brought chandeliers down to help bring the ceiling down. So it's taking a long, thin space and opening it up and not making it feel so tall, because it was just frankly uncomfortably long and thin and too tall for the. So again, these are some of the tricks we use to help achieve that. This is a room in Paris, which was a small room with all doors. You can see behind both of those paintings, those were actually doors. And it's a very small room. And traditionally, people, in small rooms, you say, gee, use smaller furniture. In this case, I actually decided I wanted to go against that rule and create bigger space, to create a more cozy room. So I actually used overscale furniture. I used those lush, full curtains, because I wanted it to feel intimate and cozy, and you could achieve that by taking the overscale furniture. In this room, we had a very low ceiling, and so here we tried to offset that by doing an overly high banquette, and then put a mirror on top of that ran the length of the room, that reflects up to the ceilings to make the space feel taller. So again, those are just 3 different tricks. In the book, I talk about more different examples of how you can use scale and proportion to your favor. So we're going to continue the world tour, and we're going to go right across the English Channel. We're going to go to Paris, my favorite city in the world, and we're going to go actually to my apartment in Paris. this, you can see it's right off, it's right in the center of Paris, right next to the Place de Concorde. And it's a very symmetrical room. And the thing that I really, this whole project taught me is the importance of symmetry. And the French really love symmetry. And the reason symmetry is important is that your mind actually feels more comfortable in a space that is symmetrical. We all feel more comfortable in symmetrical spaces for the simple reason your brain doesn't have to work as hard to figure out what's going on. If something's on the left, there's something on the right. If there's something on the top, it's something on the bottom. You understand it and you kind of go, fine, I understand it. I can let my guard down because I know I understand the space that I'm in. So in this room, you can see everything is very sort of symmetrical. Again, I used paintings to cover the doors because they were sort of, there were just too many doors in this room. But I created the space where, and there was another set of door on the left. I got rid of that door, put a mirror in there to reflect the window opposite, but I continued to play with symmetry throughout. And so that, you know, this is a very clear example of a symmetrical room. My study was not so symmetrical. It had on the right-hand side, there was a big alcove to the right of the fireplace for a radiator. So I put doors in on both sides. The ones on the door on the left don't actually even open, but they're there just to give some symmetry to the ones that I added on the right to cover the radiator. And the bedroom was a total lesson in asymmetry. The window was not centered on that wall. The fireplace wasn't centered on that wall. The fireplace was not centered on the bed. I mean, it was just a whole mess. And again, so what I did here was I basically just chose to cover up all those inconsistencies, all those failures to have symmetry by just covering up all the walls with curtains. And so that it actually hides some of the symmetry, some of the lack of symmetry, but it also creates this wonderful cocoon-like feeling for a bedroom. And when you want to close the curtains, you just close it and it becomes a total tented room. So again, those are just some examples of how I dealt with the lack of symmetry in that room. At the end of this chapter in the book, I talk a little bit about the fact that there are 4 primary different kinds of symmetry. There's reflectional symmetry, which is the most traditional one, which is if it's on the left, it's on the right, it's on the top, it's the bottom. But there are 3 other kinds of symmetry that many of which people don't know about. The next is called rotational, and a daisy or a flower like I'm showing here is a perfect example of rotational. So you have one element in the center, which is the focus, and then all those petals around are focusing in and they're giving consistency of pattern all around. And it all gives that sense of balance. One of the next forms of symmetry is called translational. And that's where you can see those the cactus, the little spikes on the cactus, that they just keep getting repeated over and over again. So you get a pattern that's repeated over and over again, and then it gives you a sense of order because of that pattern that's created. And then, of course, there's the 4th major form, which is asymmetrical, which is where there is nothing that's really symmetrical. And if you lived in a room that was totally asymmetrical, I can guarantee you, you will kind of go crazy in a short period of time. Your mind needs to have some symmetry, but that does not mean that you cannot use asymmetrical elements in a room very effectively. So here are 4 examples of symmetry in nature. Let me just show you some examples I'm going to show you 4 different examples of these kinds of symmetry. So let's start with reflectional symmetry. This is a room we did in Lake Forest outside of Chicago. And on the left-hand side was a china cabinet. On the right-hand side was just a wall, and there was a bathroom directly behind it. It felt very uncomfortable to have this china cabinet on one side and nothing on the other. So what we did was we actually turned the china cabinet into a bookcase. On the right-hand side, we didn't have the room to put a real bookcase. So just between the studs, we created this sort of faux bookcase. Those are real books. They're not just book bindings. We actually bought real books and then we cut them off. So each one was around 3 inches thick, but it gave the illusion of having this bookshelves there, and it gives the room balance and symmetry. So that's reflectional symmetry as we traditionally know it. Rotational symmetry, a dining table is the perfect example of rotational symmetry, where you've got the dining table in the center and the chandelier centering on that, and then all the chairs around it. But another example of rotational symmetry is where you have a seating area where you have a coffee table in the center and a circle of chairs around it. A fire pit would be another example of rotational symmetry. It's all focusing in, and it's focusing to the conversation that's going to happen that occurs between people on different sides of that center. Translational symmetry, here's a project we did in Paris where we used a Greek key, and we used that motif over and over again. So it's on the furniture, it's on the bedding, it's on the bed crown, it's on the ceiling medallion. Then we go into the bathroom and you see it's continues to be on the crown and on the frame of the mirror. So we took that motif, and it gives a sense of order to the room because you keep having the same design element repeated over and over again, even though the rest of the things are not per se what we would think of traditionally as being symmetrical. And finally, let me give you an example of asymmetry. So this is a very symmetrical setting. So there's a panel on the left, there's one on the right, there's a chair on the left, chair on the right. Even the mirror is very symmetrical, as is the chandelier. But we purposely designed this console table to be asymmetrical, just to kind of throw you off and sort of say, hey, don't take me for granted. If you'd had a traditional symmetrical table there, it would have been a little bit boring. So here's an example of introducing some asymmetry into a space in a very interesting way. So that was the lesson that I learned on this project, which is the importance of symmetry. We're going to continue our world tour, and we're going to go from Europe. We're going to go all the way to the west coast of California. That is the famous Chateau Marmont, the famous hotel where lots of celebrities hang out, and it's on the Sunset Strip. And we're going to go to a house, a wonderful Hollywood Regency house, just off the Sunset Strip. This was a house that was built in the 30s, and it's a wonderful house. It was a wonderful house to start with on the outside. The inside had all those other aspects right. The proportions were right. All the rooms were in the right places. But what it lacked any architectural detail. I like to sort of say that it was innocent of any architectural detailing at all. Here's what it was, some before pictures, and you can see that is just ugly crown molding that was painted black. There's just nothing. It's just basically just drywall, and it was just not a very interesting house. We don't know whether this house originally had beautiful architectural detailing that had been taken out over the years, or whether it was just never brought to the same level on the inside that it was on the outside. So what I learned on this project was the importance of introducing architectural elements into a home to make it feel more special and elegant. Here on the left, you can see the paneled entranceway. That's the same entranceway that you just saw that was just a rectangle and was pretty boring. You can see how all that, the architectural detailing on the walls make that space more interesting. Looking at the living room by putting this wonderful plasterwork ceiling and then creating a wonderful fireplace. It used to have just a horrible little wood mantle. We created this wonderful wall that is a true focal wall, and all that architectural detailing gives this room that inherent interest and elegance. This wonderful little octagonal breakfast room didn't start out being octagonal. It was built to be octagonal, but then they put on cabinets, corner cabinets, on two of the sides, so it was no longer octagonal. We ripped that out. We brought the beautiful octagonal shape back, but then we reinforced that octagonal shape on the ceiling. The ceiling medallion is actually octagonal. The table is octagonal. The rug is octagonal shaped with octagonal elements in it. So again, you're seeing that aspect of translational symmetry here in another space. But again, it's taking those different aspects and adding that, again, the beautiful crown molding. So the lesson that I learned in this room, in this house, was the importance of architectural detailing. And it is so easy to do. You know, so many times we'll start with a project and it's just maybe a new construction, a high-rise building, sort of a white box. And it's the architectural detailing that you can add that will give that space character. So I'm going to start with the floor. The floor is an easy way to add architectural detailing. On the upper left was a marble floor that we designed. It was inspired by the Doge's Palace in Venice, but we wanted to make it feel a little more hip and young, so we actually added those polka dots. And you can see on the picture to the right, we took those same stripes and polka dots and stenciled it onto the floor of a stage, which was put into the living room. And we added this stage because they actually have a lot of musician friends, and they wanted to be able to have a place to perform. So again, but that motif is repeated on the floor in those two different rooms. On the lower left is a project we did where, again, we created this wonderful, this is the central entrance hall of a very big house, but we took a marble detail, which I found at a palace in France, and reinterpreted it in these colors here. So floors are an easy way to add architectural detailing. The ceiling is a very important place. I often refer to the ceiling as the forgotten fifth wall of the room. And I think that it's so wonderful to add detailing onto ceilings, whether it's a simple plasterwork medallion, as you're seeing here on this one we added, or I love skylights, but I hate looking up into the contemporary shaft of a skylight. So we'll oftentimes create beautiful grills that still let the light in, but sort of help disguise that. And you can see on the one in the middle, we actually have a chandelier hanging from the middle of that skylight. So again, it's adding architectural details to the ceiling of a room. Here's a room where we had the architect had designed beautiful arched doors, and we decided to continue those arched doors all around the room, but with mirrors. So if there these mirrors that go around the room are shaped just like the doors, but they have now been the mullions have been gilded, and we put antique mirror into it. The architectural detailing was also continued on the ceiling with the beautiful coffered ceiling. And I just want to point out that that mirror actually does lift up to reveal a television behind it. So again, architectural detailing on the walls are such an important element. And so that was the lesson I learned in that chapter. The next one we're going to go to the Windy City, Chicago, the home of deep dish pizza, and this was a brand new penthouse on the 36th floor. It was basically a white box that we inherited, and the interesting thing is, or that we were given by the client. This was one of many projects we've done for a client, and all of their other homes had been all about the art. They have one of America's leading art collectors, but when you went into the homes, they looked a bit like museums, and that was intentional. They now said they wanted the art to be integrated into the house, and they wanted all the pieces of furniture to feel like they were pieces of art as well. So if you look at, you can see on the left, you can see the view of, it's overlooking Lake Michigan. You can see the table that I designed, the coffee table, which has églimisé, a glass which is painted on the reverse side and then mirrored. It's mixed with pyrite. On the right-hand side, you can see how we took a wonderful 18th century Italian console and mixed it with this wonderful Picasso collection, so that the art is sitting on a piece of art. And so the art feels very much like it's integrated into the home. Even the way we hung the art, these are 7 wonderful pieces by Frank Stella, and we intentionally hung them this way so they felt like they almost belonged there. So they kind of wrap around the fireplace. We left a space for the chandelier to hang. So again, it created a space that is inherently more interesting, and the art is very much a part of it, but it's not all about the art. When the artist Frank Stella saw this photo, he was like, wow, I never would have thought of pairing those individual pieces together and certainly hanging it that way. And he really loved the way it was done. Even in the smaller rooms, so like here's a powder room where I designed the cabinet there to feel like it is a piece of art. The bronze top actually exactly follows the wood base. The mirror which we had made, which reflects the Miro piece of art. In the master sitting room, where we introduced those mirrors so that you can see in that reflection, you can see a wonderful Jasper Johns, which is being reflected in the mirror because it's over the bed. So it's over the owner's bed. So they can't actually see it when they're in bed, but they get to see it through the mirror. And so what I learned on this project was the importance of making art and mirrors a part of every home. I find that as a designer, clients are frankly a little bit resistant to art unless they're art collectors. They think that art is going to be beyond their budget and they can't afford it. And they find too many mirrors to be, they think, oh, people are going to think we're vain. Somewhat like that woman who's kissing herself in the mirror. Art and mirrors should not be viewed in those ways because art is accessible. This is some less accessible art. I'm starting out with that. This is some wonderful San Francis paintings that are, what we did here was we wanted the art to be more of the star. So the previous interior designer had painted all the walls different colors. The trim was one color and the paneling was another color. And it was just frankly too busy. You couldn't actually notice the art. But here's an example where art is really making a strong statement. Here on the example here is you can see, I'm going to talk about the one on the right, that was a doorway. And we didn't need the doorway anymore, but rather than just drywalling over the doorway, I actually decided to put a mirror on the inside of that doorway, paint all the sides black, and then put a frame around the doorway. So it almost feels like a frame, a big mirror. But then we hung another mirror and a console table on top of that mirror. So it starts to play with the space. It opens up the space. And this, as you can see, is clearly an example of where the mirror is not being used as a vanity. It's really being used as an architectural element to make the space feel more interesting. On the left, you can see another sort of crazy example of how we used mirrors, even down to a mirrored wall covering. And on the right, where you can see we used the mirror, this oversized mirror, to again open up the room, to enhance the architectural detailing of the room, and then have the two paintings on top of each other. Again, this is an example of working with the scale and proportions of the room. A room that's this tall, if you didn't put elements way up high, you'd actually feel dwarfed by the room. So again, it's an example of this slide shows a number of different examples of lessons that I've learned along the way. So we're going to go from this aspect of art and mirrors. We're going to continue our tour, and we're now going to go to the West Coast of California. This was a very interesting house. It was a spec house, and the clients bought it when it was all done, and it was just all white. There were no shutters. Everything was white, inside, outside. And they said, we love the house. We love the shape and the spaces and the size, but we are color people. And so you can see the blue shutters and the red door, and then we go inside and you see color. We also decided to take one of my big pet peeves is having rooms that people don't use, living rooms people often don't use. So in this case, I said, what's going to get you to use your living room? And they said, our books. So we actually put wall to wall, floor to ceiling bookcases all around the living room and created this sort of as this wonderful living room library. But you can see these bright, strong colors that are used in this room and how even the colors on the book bindings really are full of life and color. The dining room right across from the living room, we took the same colors, the blue, the red, and the yellow, and created that. And then again, coming back into this aspect of architectural details, look at that door where we actually covered it with leather and added nail studs around it to add just another little layer of interest. But again, color is the key here. Looking at the kitchen with this wonderful bright kitchen island, and the kitchen overlooks the garden, so we really wanted to make the inside and the outside feel like they were one. So what this whole project really taught me so much of is the importance of the power of color and how color really can be used to communicate different attitudes, different feelings, and different emotions. So blue is the world's favorite color. 30% of all people say that blue is their favorite color. You know why? It's because you associate colors with different feelings, different attitudes, different experiences. And blue is associated with blue skies, sunny days, the water. It's just this wonderful, happy color. And people tend to really find that blue and white rooms are these happy rooms, the rooms you want to be in. Yellow is an interesting color. In research shows that researchers took the same room and painted it 30 different colors and asked them a battery of different questions. Interestingly enough, the room that was painted yellow, people thought was the brightest of all the rooms. People thought it was brighter than the white room. So if I have a particularly dark room, I paint it yellow, not white. So here was a powder room, which had no windows. And by painting it this yellow color, it makes it feel bright and sunny. So yellow is again, I'm not going to go through all the different colors. I'm just going to show you a couple of examples, but color is a very powerful way. Green is a great color. This was a home office we did, and the client said that they wanted to be able to work at home, but not have it be too sedate. And so green is a great color because the reason that green is used in green rooms off of theaters and is that green is a color that does two things simultaneously. It energizes you, and it simultaneously makes you feel energized. So and calms you. And I realize that I'm running out of battery. So Elaine, if you could bring me my cord for my computer, I'm going to be out of this very soon. Okay, next we're going to continue that tour, and we're going to continue on to a wonderful house that's in Beverly Hills. It's one of the largest private houses in Beverly Hills, private estates, 14 acres. You're actually looking at the pool house, which is the red tile building, and you're looking at the pool, you're looking at the amphitheater there to the right, and you're looking at some of the vineyards on the property. This is in the middle of Beverly Hills. It's a landmark house. It was built in the 20s, and you can see on the outside it's very sedate and feels very traditional. But on the inside, oops, sorry, need a longer cord, can't reach. Sorry. Sorry, they're trying to help me. Hang on. I just don't want to lose you guys. Okay, got it. But all right, I'm gonna move this way. Okay, there we got it. Okay, you can see there's something that's more playful going on. You look at the color of that on that awning, and these clients said, you know, in Los Angeles, which is arguably the creative capital of the world because of all the movies, entertainment that's created here, it's amazing how boring so many of the interiors of Los Angeles houses are. So they said they wanted every room in this house to be a wow. Every room was meant to be a piece of art. We started out with the entrance hall, which is certainly a wow. That you can see there's that marble floor that we talked about. We created those wonderful arches in that long hallway. The chandeliers, rock crystal chandeliers, have butterflies hanging on them. There's a bubble chandelier that goes 3 stories on the staircase that we created. On the left is there was a library, and they said, we're not going to use a library much, so we turned it into the library of liquor. We had Warner Brothers create all the walls out of tortoiseshell, and that's an actual life-size rock crystal Superman flying in through the windows. On the right, we took traditional crystal chandeliers and dipped them in chrome to make that sort of wild, that sort of interesting effect. And those curtains, the hanging part are silk. Some of the valance part you're seeing is silk. Part of it is actual fabric, which we soaked in plaster and then painted to look like it was the silk. And we did all this because we wanted it to continue to be everywhere where you went, there was something sort of interesting, like, is that real fabric? Is it not, et cetera. So it's always this sort of playful aspect. And this wonderful breakfast room, all the green things you're seeing, those are actual real leaves that have been soaked in glycerin. I found a company in South Africa that would do this. They soak them in glycerin. They are then attached to fabric. So those leaves stay fresh and soft for around 20 years. And so we created the curtains on them of the leaves. The ceiling is all of those leaves. And then I found this chandelier, had the chandelier made that was all looking like little leaves. And even you can see the table base, it feels like a trunk. So again, it's all about wow. And now, to be honest with you, this is more wow in this house than I would normally do in a house. But the lesson that I learned in this project, one more, is here's the artist studio in the house. Again, bright colors, and that desk goes up and down for drafting, etc. So what I learned on this house is the real importance of having drama and surprise somewhere in every house. And the thing is, I don't think you want to have a lot of drama and surprise in rooms where you're spending a lot of time, because it can become a little overwhelming. But there are 4 rooms in a house where I think you really can go for some drama and surprise. And the first one is a dining room. You can see on the left, a dining room I think is a great room for drama and surprise, because you want your guests to feel that it's special, it's an entertaining experience. But if it's one that you also don't want to feel like you would get tired of over, if you're living in it all the time. So here we had this fabric, which we had hand painted. We tinted the ceiling, designed the dining table to have a mirror to reflect up on the ceiling, and then every chair is upholstered in a different color. Another place to have some surprise and theatricality is an entrance hall. Your people coming into your house, you want to say, hey, you're coming someplace special. This is a house in Beverly Hills, and we intentionally used this bright red wall covering to create a sense of drama, something you would not expect when you come into this 2-story entrance hall. A guest bedroom. A guest bedroom is a great place to go for some drama and wow. Here we actually paired the unlikely colors of cobalt and orange, and it makes this wonderful, fun space. It's great for a guest bedroom because they get to feel like they're going someplace special, but you actually don't want them to stay more than 2 or 3 days. So by the time they're getting a little overwhelmed with it, it's time for them to go. And then the final place that I think it's go for some wow is in the powder room. This is a fully mirrored powder room, which we did. And I think it makes for some real impact. So those are the 4 places that I would say you can add some theatricality. And I think you should look at adding theatricality and drama and surprise to a house. And I'm showing this last slide to show that drama and surprise doesn't come in the traditional ways. Here's a room that there's nothing particularly dramatic or surprising about this, unless I were to tell you that's actually a screening room. And there's a screen that comes down, those curtains close automatically, those chairs swivel and become recliners, and that sofa is a recliner. So it's a room that can work as double purposes. So again, you can add drama and surprise in lots of different ways. And we're going to go to our last stop is a house in Lake Forest, Illinois. And I showed you the dining room of it earlier. It's not one of the big houses. It's actually the gardener's cottage on a big estate. And this was a weekend house for some clients, and they wanted a place that was very, very comfortable. So you can see all the furniture is about comfort. It's about soothing colors. Again, look at all those aspects that I talked about earlier of symmetry. You've got the symmetry at play there, which is again soothing. Looking at this wonderful greenhouse, we converted the greenhouse, we heated it, we air conditioned it, and then made it this comfortable space to hang out in, whether you're summer or winter. And it's comfortable also because that's all outdoor fabric, so you don't have to worry about how you live in it and whether you spill on it. The breakfast room with, again, purposely did comfortable chairs. I try to use comfortable chairs in dining rooms so that people can hang out. If you're going to be reading the newspaper for a couple of hours, the Sunday Times on the, you want to be able to sit there comfortably and have comfortable place in the bedroom where you can just hang out. So comfort was the key lesson in this project. And to me, I would say it's the thing that I've learned as a designer is the most important element of any home. And when I look at this picture, I mean, you cannot help but smile and say, yes, that is what we all want our homes to feel like, is that we are comforted, we are nurtured, and we're supported. And right now during the pandemic, I think we're seeing that our clients are wanting that even more. So I want to just talk about some aspects of comfort. This is a picture from around 20 years ago. I couldn't find any comfortable outdoor furniture. Most outdoor furniture is not that comfortable. So I said, why can't a chair or a sofa that's outside be as comfortable as one inside? So we actually had the frames made out of teak. The foam on the cushions are all outdoor outdoor foam, and then outdoor fabric. So again, outdoor is a great place to bring comfort into a home. The next aspect of comfort is, can you live in the space? And let's face it, if we don't have a dog like this who makes messes, we do it ourselves. I know I am one of the biggest messes around. And so I really believe very strongly in the use of performance fabrics, and particularly solution dyed acrylic, because you can put bleach on it, you can do anything, you can stain it, and you can't ruin it. This is that's my dog Winston, and you can see this is some of my fabric for perennials. And that carpet is even solution dyed acrylic, so you can live comfortably in that way. You can spill on it without worrying about making a mess. And when it comes to furniture, this is an 18th century table that lives outside. What we did was we covered it with marine varnish, and we do that with all of the antiques that we put on our jobs. So we cover them with marine varnish, so you don't have to worry about putting a hot cup of coffee down and leaving a white ring on it. You can put a wet drink on it and not worry about leaving those marks. Again, comfort is such an important part of how you live in a home. So there's the physical aspects, the psychological aspects in terms of scale and proportion, which we talked about earlier, and then the practical aspects of using materials that you can live in comfortably. So that's the end of our tour. What I hope you've picked up on this little world tour are some lessons and some souvenirs. So the first is scale and proportion, which address a room's strengths and very often its shortcomings. The next is symmetry, the 4 different kinds: reflectional, which is the most pleasing; rotational, which gives focus; translational, which gives unity and calm; and asymmetry, when you just want to add a touch of surprise. The next thing we talked about is architectural details, which make any room feel more special, and it's so easy to add. The next is the aspect of art and mirrors and how they provide character and visual depth to a room. The next is the power of color, how it can help create the mood of a room. And drama and surprise, which creates impact in rooms that are used less often. And finally, and perhaps most importantly to me, is that comfort should never be sacrificed. The most beautiful room in the world is not really successful to me unless it's first and foremost comfortable. So those are the lessons which we learned. And so just in summary, apply the basic design principles to every space in your home. Don't sacrifice comfort for beauty. Use every room in your house. That elegance should be a part of your life every single day, and that a comfortably elegant space allows you to be your very best self. And I'm reminded of this wonderful quote by Salvador Ferragamo, who said, "Elegance and comfort are not incompatible, and whoever maintains the contrary simply doesn't know what he's talking about." So I end this by saying, life is short. Bring out your fine china and use it every day. So thank you so much. And I'm going to end this, and we will go to questions. So stop share, and hopefully we got it. Stop share. There we go. And there is Clint.
That was remarkable.
Thank you so much.
Stunning. So everyone is impressed by the dexterity of your work and being able to work in so many styles. You know, there are a number of great designers who can do that. And there are also designers who have a signature style or a hallmark. How do you, when you have clients come to you, you know, and sometimes there's comfort in that, you know, if a client is going to a designer and they have certain looks and styles that they're known for, but when you have this range, how do you communicate that to a client where it doesn't come across as overwhelming? Because, you know, we've seen examples of beautiful white on white dining rooms, and then, you know, over the top screening rooms. And so how do you channel that?
We have a really wonderful first session we do with any client. We tell them they have to do their homework. They need to pull things, whether it's a Pinterest board, pulls from magazines, books, whatever it is. They need to come show us what they like. But even more importantly, I find, is what they don't like. It's very important for them to say, "I hate this, I hate that." Because then it's like, great, I want the process with our clients to be one that they really enjoy. And there are many designers who I think forget that what we're providing our clients is a luxury, and that they should enjoy it. Not only should they enjoy not only should they enjoy the house when it's done, they should enjoy the project along the way. And the way I find that you can do that more effectively is by continually showing them things that they're going to like. So you're giving them so many wonderful options that they walk away saying, God, I've been a kid in a candy store. And so one of the ways we do that next is we do a color deck thing where we go through every single color and we say, do you like yellow reds? Do you like reds that are yellow based or blue based? Do you like every single color? And so again, more importantly than what the colors they like, and it's important. Some people will say, I really like blue, yellow, and red, and that's it. We've got a client now who will only do blue, yellow, and red. They don't even want green in their house. But again, it's more important when they say, I hate purple, I don't want to see purple, I hate brown. So again, I know that then when we're pulling things, there are certain things that are just off the table. And then finally, we do the same thing. The third step is we do it with patterns. So we actually do it with fabric. We take blue, because blue is, again, the favorite color. So we'll show every kind of fabric, blue check, blue stripe, blue satin, blue velvet, blue whatever, so that we can again see what things they like and don't like. So we're continuing narrowing down, and we have a better understanding of what it is that they like and don't like. And then we finally do that with furniture styles. And we have a whole book. So we'll show industrial, we'll show country, we'll show everything. That whole process is very, very valuable. And it's interesting, we're working with Danny Wegman, who owns Wegman's grocery store chain. And he was so impressed with this whole presentation. He said, will you show this to our complete marketing team? So I was like, well, I don't think they're going to be that interested in the, how we develop a home. And he said, no, he said, I want them to understand the process of understanding a client. And that's what this is really all about, is understanding your client so that you can give them the very best version of their home. And I always tell our clients, it's not my ego, it's not my home. I want to deliver to you the best version of your home that I can possibly give you. And so I'll be honest with you, we've done some houses where I'd say, well, I wouldn't want to live in that house, but they love it and they're happy with it. And I know it's the best version of what it is that they wanted that was possible.
Which is a win-win. So with some of your maximalist interiors, there's a question, how do you prevent layers from appearing cluttered? And I found the chapter in the book called The Layered Look. And you said, just because these rooms encompass so much, that doesn't mean anything goes. So how do you harness that?
Well, I find that if you repeat the same thing, let's say you collect boxes. I love collections, but if you have 20 different boxes sitting on a coffee table, it's going to feel a little overwhelming. It's going to feel cluttered. So I find that by mixing elements, mixing hard with soft, scale, so mixing different elements together help you not feel like it's cluttered. So it's to me, it's the mixture of the elements versus too many of the same elements.
Got it. Another great question. What advice do you give to someone starting out as a second career who doesn't live in a city where an internship with a major designer would be possible? And I know you and your friend Vincent Wolf talked a little bit about this over the summer with the 2 webinars you presented, which were very informative.
Thank you. So I want to encourage everyone on this call. We've probably got a lot of designers, but we may have some people who are not designers. And I will say that I started out in a totally different career. I used to be in advertising. I ran a very big advertising agency. And I came to design very late in my life. I discovered it late, and I feel that, and we've made a point of hiring people who have had previous careers. I find people who've had other careers actually are oftentimes better when they come to design because they have a whole nother set of skills they're bringing to it. So we've had investment bankers, we've had a brain surgeon, we've had talent agents, all different things. And I love doing that. So I would encourage people, if you're thinking about coming into design, it's an amazing field and I would encourage you to do it. And the issue is some of the key things though, that you have to realize is that if you're coming into the design world today, you can't do it without CAD. You have to, there's some basic skill sets you have to have, and you're gonna need to get those somewhere before you can go on and hope to move forward in it.
Well, many of us enjoy following your home renovations from France, even though you're conducting those remotely
Yeah.
from Los Angeles. So what is the latest on that? Are you going to France anytime soon, or are you going to continue to coordinate and orchestrate that from afar?
Well, unfortunately, that Americans are not welcome in France right now, and not welcome in Europe right now. And we're actually, one of our clients is the American ambassador, and I called her and said, "Can you get me in?" And she said, "Listen, I cannot even get my own sons into the country, so sorry, Charlie." So it's unfortunately legal. We're not legally allowed to go in. So I've been doing a lot of it just by again. Marking up photos and marking colors and saying this color here and this color there. I'm doing 2 different projects for myself, both the chateau as well as a new apartment in Paris. So I'm doing all that remotely, but we're also dealing with 2 different clients in France as well. So we're having to do all of that in Europe remotely, unfortunately right now, but I'm hoping that will change.
Another great question. We see a lot of amazing art and artists in your projects. Do you have a favorite artist that inspires your work?
Gosh, great question. So many artists. I love art. So and I love art of all different periods. So it would be hard to say there's any one artist. I will tell you there's one artist though that has directly influenced a couple of my projects. And it was an artist, a Spanish artist from the early 20th century named Jose Maria Sert, who was a wonderful muralist. He did all the murals at Rockefeller Center in New York. And he did a wonderful number of different murals all over Europe. And I love his sort of surreal, they would white gold leaf walls and then paint on top of them. So they're these amazing spaces. And I've used his techniques, his approaches on a couple different projects. So I'd say that's the artist that has most directly influenced me in terms of my art, my design.
So I have a question. So, it's obvious in all of your projects that no detail goes overlooked. And I'm sure your clients demand that of you, that everything is exact, every I is dotted, every T is crossed. Do you leave moments of serendipity or the art of surprise when you're planning a house?
Oh my gosh, yes. I think, the best, even the most detailed plan, you get it into a room and it just doesn't work. You think it's going to work, and I've watched and I've said it all looked good on paper, and that's when you start moving things around. And I think every designer has experienced that on an install, where it's forced serendipity. So, but I think that's when some wonderful things actually happen, when
Right.
you plan to have it a certain way and it doesn't go that way and it works somewhere different. And I think it's just a natural part of any project.
That's great. We have a question from Amy. What's the best way to market myself and my business? I'm assuming she's a designer.
Okay, so I would say it's actually much easier for a designer who's starting out today than it was when I was starting out. When I was starting out, you basically had to rely exclusively on magazines. Sadly, magazines are getting smaller. They're not getting as much advertising, and so it's getting harder and harder to get advertised because they're not showing as many projects. The good news is that social media it makes it so possible to do that. I met a designer in London who built her entire business also off of social media. She never did a show house. She never did anything. She just did social media. So I think that social media allows you to do that today. I do think that show houses are great ways because having said what the woman from London said, I think they're great ways because it lets people see your work firsthand, and it also lets you give something to promote your work. So I'd say that, again, a designer today is probably got it easier than they did 20 years ago to make themselves known.
Right. I've lost here we go. Do you think, this may be controversial, do you think the pervasive of black and gray in interiors is a trend that will pass, or will last?
Gray it has already passed. It was interestingly, when I was doing my first collection for Schumacher, which was maybe 7 years ago, I had said to them, you know what? It was really when we were really in the height of we were, I guess, in the sort of maybe the middle part of the gray stage. And I said, color is coming back, and I did a full color collection. They came back to us and said, you're right. You're selling better than any of our grays. Gray is now, it is trickled down to, it is at the Home Depot level of design right now. So I would say, a little gray is fine, but these homes that are gray, it looks dated. It already looks like 2015. And so I think you really have to be careful. I really believe in not following trends overall. So don't follow it, a trend, but I would say in general, nothing dates a room more than following a trend. So yes, gray is over and we are back at colors. And I did a new collection for Schumacher and I gave them all these colors and they said, no, we actually see colors being more saturated than you're even showing us. So we actually punched up the color on those. So I think we're seeing much more saturated colors than we've seen in years.
One last question. We may have time for one or two more, but when we look through your books and we look at your presentation, we see these beautiful rooms and, we don't know all the detail that's gone into them. And one of the things that has come up a lot today is the importance of interior architecture. And sometimes we look at these pictures and just assume it's always been there. When you're working with a client, how difficult is it to convince them to get the envelope right before you start furnishing? Is that a challenge or is it a case-by-case basis?
No, I don't think it has not been a real challenge. I think it's something the designers don't think enough about. They just sort of assume that what that box is the box that they need to work with. And I think it's I think it actually creating the framework, the canvas from which you're then going to be adding furniture and curtains and everything else, is creating that first is the very first element. It's what we focus on first and foremost, is all the architectural elements that will then showcase all the other elements. So I would encourage designers to look at that and figure out if they're getting us, if your client's got a space that is not particularly architecturally interesting or has some inherent problems in it, figure out how to deal with them first before you start looking at how do I decorate this room.
Right. So before we wind up, what's next? You've got the project in France. Any more licensed collections in the pipeline? What's on the horizon?
So I've got a new collection of rugs coming out from Kyle Bunting, which the hides, which I just love. And I'm loving doing that. We're doing some new fabrics and patterns for rugs and fabric for perennials. And we're working on a project that I think is so fascinating. It's a British battleship, which this billionaire client bought and is turning into the world's largest private yacht. So it is amazing. It's seven different decks and helicopter landing pads and swimming pools and everything else. And it's an amazing project because it's not the traditional yacht. It is this battleship, which is going to be this incredible yacht. So I feel so lucky to be working on such a diversity of projects all around the world. And it's possible to do all that. Before I was traveling around the world, literally traveling around the world once a month. I'd go to our projects in Asia and then Middle East and then Europe and then I work my way back across America. So every 2 weeks out of every month I was going around the world. I've loved not traveling during this period and Zoom has certainly helped with that.
Right. Well, Timothy, thank you so much.
Thank you.
It's so informative, so entertaining and enlightening. And I think we've all walked away finding ourselves very inspired. And so thank you for joining us for Boston Design Week. And on behalf of everyone at New England Home, hope you have a good rest of your weekend. Thank you. And we hope to see you again in person.
Yes. And thank you, New England Home. And thank you, Clint. Really appreciate it.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.